professionals throughout the country. From 1985 to the present, she's been a top producer in KW throughout the Austin region. From 1993 to 1996, she served as the national top producer. National top producer. Everybody get that? National.
Yeah.
Additionally, each year from 1997 to present, she has been selected to be a member of the prestigious Who's Who in the Austin Real Estate Elite 25. We also know Althea as the queen of profit and growth share.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that today because she got that going early on. And if I'm right, Althea, you've collected over $2 million so far in profit share. Is that correct?
Actually, I think it's over 5.
Over $5 million in profit share. Give her a round of applause for that. So we have some questions. Go ahead.
My maths is not that good, but and you've got to remember I've got a husband as well who died, so now I get his as well.
Oh, that's okay.
So it's almost $1 million a year. You know,
It's
Just.
so yeah.
$1 million a year?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Now.
Now, it's $1 million a year. How many of you all would like to wake up in the morning and see what's $1 million divided by 12 in your bank account, right?
Well, it doesn't. It's more in the summer and less in the winter.
Oh, well, okay. Well, you know, so we have to budget accordingly. Yes.
And the other thing is that, well, see, I got this moment.
Okay.
See, this is my profit sharing page when 1994,
Oh my God. Oh my goodness.
and I made $850 that month.
$850 that month. So those of you who are just
And
starting
let me show
out,
you where is
that may be
it.
what you have right now.
This was the month of September. It's like a telephone book.
Holy
But
camoni.
that's taken me what is it, to June of 2015 from 94.
You want to sit
20
down?
years.
You want
20
to sit
years.
down or you
No,
come
I'll get up and down when I get excited. I get up.
I'm the same way. You know,
Okay.
you might notice I can hardly sit
Yes,
still.
we both got right on.
That's right. All right, so can I ask you a few questions? And then we're going to open it up to our audience, and we want you
Right.
just to take this where you want it to go.
Okay. Now I want it to go where they want it to go.
Absolutely. It's all about them, right? Okay, fantastic. So when you came to Keller Williams in 1983, had you already worked in the real estate profession?
No.
Okay. What was it that impressed you most about Keller Williams? What
He was doing Keller, obviously. But actually, I interviewed with him in 1982, and he was at J.B. Goodwin. And at that time, I was 48 years old, and I was looking for, I figured, after my third interview, training and support. And he was the trainer at J.B. Goodwin when I spoke with him. He just was so different. I interviewed all over town, all the media, all the Rebacks. Henry S. Miller was there then, and they were all dying to get me. And it wasn't until about the second or third interview that I realized they wanted me more than I wanted them, if you see what I mean. So I went about my interview slightly differently after about 2, looking at what I felt I could get. And I think Gary gave it, he was only 29 or 28, or 27, I can't remember. He's my kid. And anyway, he said to me, I'm not going to give you fish, I'm going to teach you how to fish. And to be honest, I felt that I could go there, learn it, and then go anywhere I wanted. And so that's why I picked him. Training and support.
Even though you could have gone anywhere you wanted, you've chosen to stay.
Yeah, well, it became a terrific relationship to begin with, and then just before I got my license, I went to my last training class. You know how you go to these MCE things, still have to, at ACC, and he was teaching it. And it was my last 3 hours or whatever it is, and I went down to him in an interval. There were about 200 people there. And I interviewed with him at J.B. Goodwin, and I said to him, I'm about to get my license. Oh, he said, Althea, I remember you. It's my accent, I think, I don't know. My name, maybe.
Charming.
But anyway, he remembered me, which made me feel very wanted. And he said, I'm now starting my own company, and it's going to be Keller Williams. And my office now, instead of having to drive 20 miles north to Round Rock, where he was going to open a J.B. Goodwin, I had to drive 20 miles down south to where he was going to open his Keller Williams. He had a card table. He had a typewriter on the card table. We had no cell phones. We had big fat books with all the pictures of the houses in them. And it was so different. I'm not sure I could do real estate today because I'm not sure my techies, but then I'd be younger, wouldn't I? So I'd grow up with tech. When I had no cell phone, we had no fax machine.
Right.
We had nothing. We had a telephone, and then we got these big telephones that went into the car, and we got pagers. That was in '83. But his training, I mean, still think I don't know, but I'm sure I joined Keller Williams today, but the training is the best training. And once you've got the training, you can look about and see what you want and decide what to do. And as he lost 7 agents to Remax in 1987, and I was his top agent at that time, they tried to persuade me to go. I grew into a top agent thanks to Jim Carney, CEO of Cirrus, whom I met at an open house. I got business in those days, I think it's different today, from open houses and sale by owners, because I like people, and I knocked on doors. I mean, I think in real estate you have to pick what you like to do so that you do it well. If you don't like doing it, you're not going to do it very well. So, and I hated cold calling. They always say, what did you say? Because of my accent. You know, when I ask for a hamburger, I go to the hamburger and I say, French fries, hamburger, and water, please. They say, what did you say, ma'am? And I have to go to the window because you don't say water, you say what? What do you say, water?
I say water.
Whatever you say, it's different. Anyway, I did not do very well on the telephone, but open house I loved. And I still think that works, doesn't it?
Oh, it still does. And did you say you also did some door knocking?
I did a bit, but didn't like that very much.
Didn't like it as much.
No, I didn't. I felt cheap. Sorry.
That's fine. I mean, that was your feeling.
But I did it a bit just because my partner that I joined forced me to do it. We two of us joined up in the training, and she forced me to do it. She said, okay, and we did get a couple of listings that way. But when I kind of got doing it all on my own, I just did open house. I did 20 hours a week of open house. Wow. Now, you don't just do one Sunday for 3 or 4 hours and say, well, it didn't work for me. If you do 15 to 20 hours a week for a month and you don't get a buyer or seller in that time, it probably doesn't work for you. But I can always promise you that you will. And the other thing I like to talk about is that I'm mixing up this.
Just keep going, you're doing great.
In the open house, I never attack anybody when they walk through the door. And I always liken it like when you go into a store and you say, the helper says, can I help you? You say, no, I'm just looking. Well, they're just looking too. So I used to sit at a table, bury my head in whatever I was doing, say, let me know if I can help you. And then I always say, when they get into the master bathroom and they can't get away, I go lean on the door. And I said, oh, how are you? Are you new to Austin? How nice to see you. Are you a neighbor? So that they drop their guard. I can't tell you how many people I got in the master bathroom. Agents too, by the way, when I recruited. Linda, who's Linda? The partner? Yes. She was my quickest recruit.
She sure was. She told that story.
She tells that story.
Yeah.
She was in the master bathroom. We were at an open house, at a realtor open house, and we were alone in the master bathroom, and I looked at her and I said, you ever talk to anybody about Keller Williams? That's my sort of line. Have you ever talked to anybody about Keller Williams? Because they haven't, and they don't, and it's all about competition. It's all about your own sales at the beginning. I wasn't interested in recruiting when Gary started it. I just said, okay, if you're going to do that, that's fine. And it wasn't until I started getting little checks that I decided this might work. And I came home to my husband and I said, this is probably going to work. He said, it'll never work. I got him on movies. I mean, he's been dead 6 years now. But I got him on a movie saying that. It'll never work, he said. And he changed his mind. But I did start, I'm a goal person and I have goals and I try to, that's why I love bold, because you set your goals and you do them. And I had 20 hours of open house a week. I called 10 sale by owners a month. And then I try to call or talk to, even today, 10 agents a month or 10 people going into real estate. I think I got 3 new recruits in Austin this week. I just talk every time I go. I see people, you know.
So the beat goes on, you're still doing it.
I'm recruiting more than selling now.
And it sounds like you're very intentional about this.
Oh,
That's your goals.
Very, very intentional. And I think that's the way I'm built. It's hard if you're not built like that. I've always been goal-oriented since I went to school. I had to make A's and I had to do well. I had a best friend who was the naughtiest girl in the school, and I was the goodest girl in the school. And when we got together, I'm going to see her now. I've known her 76 years. I'm 81, would you believe? No.
Impossible.
No, I am. And I'm going to see her next month and spend a couple of weeks with her. And she and I used to, well, I think I was 9 or 10. She would sit next to me and she talked to me all the way through class. So I said to her, look, if you're going to be my friend, you've got to sit the other side of the classroom because I want to learn how to do this. So I made her better and she made me more daring. I always say that. It worked very well.
That's fantastic. So I'm just curious, what kind of goals do you have around profit share right now? Double your income or what?
Well, I really don't have to have any goals anymore, I don't think. At 81, I think I can. But I love the company so much, and I love it when people come up to me and say, you changed my life. Mason just came up to me. I didn't know who the heck he was, to be honest, when he walked up to me. But I understand that 20 years ago, a great friend of mine told him that to come to Keller Williams and talk to me. 20 years ago, right, Mason?
I was a baby then.
Yes, you were. And I was a bit younger. But the thing is that it's in my DNA now. Keller Williams is totally in my DNA, and I think it helps you to, if you love it that much and they respect you, they're going to listen. I can talk about Roya Johnson.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Roya Johnson.
She tried to recruit me for 15 years. She had her own company and an agency, and we'd have lunch. I do think it's extremely important to keep a very good relationship with all the agents. It doesn't matter which company it is. And in fact, it's almost more important than your customers. And I think I can say that I don't have any enemies. And I know people like Laura Gosling. I know all these people. Hello, Althea, how are you? They don't mind which company I'm with. And I don't actually try to recruit them, because I think she used to recruit me, and I used to say, you know, I'm not going to leave Keller Williams, so you might as well talk to me about that. You know, do you know what you're saying no to? They don't know what they're saying no to, and they won't always listen to you. And so one of my scripts is don't say no until you know what you're saying no to. But I try to say it, I don't push for it right at the beginning. I may not even mention it for quite a while, unless it's a cold call, then you've got to mention it. But like South Africa was. But basically you get to know people by just getting to know them around the place. And if they respect you and they have a good relationship with you, they'll listen. And eventually maybe the penny will drop, and then they'll come up to you and say, thank you so much, you changed my life, as Roya does. And after trying to recruit me for 10 years, and she doesn't mind if I tell this story, I've asked her, and she said, my gosh, I don't mind, Althea. And we used to have lunch every so often, and one day she called me and she said, I'd like to have lunch. I said, oh, good, that'd be great. And she said, guess what, I need to talk to you about Keller Williams. I said, finally! And she joined and brought several agents over and has loved it. That was about, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Probably so.
And Mason was 20 years ago. So you build it gradually. You don't build it in a day. And a lot of people say it was okay for me because I was there at the beginning. It was much harder at the beginning. I promise you, we had nothing to recruit to. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any profit sharing at that time. All we had was good training and support and a great fellowship in the office. And that, I was talking to you about that downline thing. When Gary put the company, see, he had a 50-50, 60-40 company from 1983 to 1986 or 7. I can't remember. It's 87.
So the split was different then?
It was 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. There was no cap. It was just a regular company. And then 6 offices, 6 agents, I can name them, left for Remax, and they tried because they were good agents and they wanted 100%. And obviously, as a business person, you should always look at your opportunities. And you look as you grow up and get bigger. Well, I was doing a lot of millions then, 20 million a year, something, and that was a lot in those days. And I had this wonderful relocation stuff going on. And I could hardly stop. My son always says when he talks, he says, my mother started selling real estate and I never saw her again. I had to get join real estate and go into real estate to see her. And that's when he joined me. So from that time forward, they left. And Gary I would say he went into his brain cells because he is extremely visionary and he is a different person. And he came back to us about a year later and said, I'm thinking of putting this profit sharing into place. And it was Phil Hurley, Gary Gentry, myself, about a dozen of us, I suppose. We used to meet like this every week. And then afterwards, his top people he'd get with them and talk about how we built it from scratch. And that's what I find so inspiring about the whole thing, because it wasn't just the broker setting it all in place. It was the broker and the agents in a team, and that's what we are. And we both win or we both lose. And one of the things I find about the other companies is it's like, I'd probably be at Remax if he didn't have, unless he gave me 100% after so much. But they're each individual, and they have their own business, like lawyers. They have their own business, and they don't really interrelate at all. And I used to have dinners at my house and have my downline in and help them, and you should always help them. And I always give my leads to my downline. However, we got so that somebody would come up to me and say, I wish I was in your downline, because we were smaller then, remember? And so you saw more of that. And so we 5 got together. Gary put 5 of us on the top and then wound about the other 15 agents underneath. So I had profit sharing right away. And we had profit sharing right away in this, but when you're starting like in South Africa, you don't get profit sharing right away. Actually you do, because it's growth share. But if you do, yes. Okay, so am I talking too much?
Not at all. You're talking too much?
No, everybody loves it. Keep going.
Okay, so the 5 of us got together and we said, look, we've got to support everybody. We don't want people coming and saying, I wish I was in your downline because I want to come and have wine and learn about the body. I was going to say resurrection. What do I mean? Innovation. Resurrection. And so we all got together and we decided then to do it together. So if I had something training like this, I open it for everybody. And they could all come. So then I had Christmas parties at my house. We're too big now, thank God. But we were only about 100 then, so we'd have them at my house, my Keller Williams house. I always say I've got 2 Keller Williams houses. I would not have them if it was not for Keller Williams. And my real estate sales and my downline. So
Fabulous. So,
you got me.
go ahead.
Anybody else got questions?
Okay, Nikki.
I feel like it's pretty easy to talk to like someone who's interested in becoming an agent about why they should join KW, but what kinds of things do you say to, like, do you talk about profit sharing if you're trying to recruit someone who's already an agent somewhere else?
Oh, right, yes.
Let's repeat the question just because we're filming this. So you're talking about, do you talk about profit share when you're trying to recruit someone outside of KW?
Yeah, what things do you say to fellow agents who are not with KW?
Okay, what things do you say to fellow agents not with KW?
Well, first of all, I try not to attack them with it because that gets very irritating. And when we first started it, everybody was attacking it. Gary used to give a presentation once a week to anybody we wanted to bring in. Then we had a problem with downline because if they came in because you told them to come in, but they were best friends with somebody else. I got a couple of those sort of stories to tell you about who they pick for their sponsor because it's their choice, it's not your choice. We try to protect at the beginning and say, well, this person's my choice, my recruit, but if they had a sister or brother in Dallas or somewhere, they're not going to pick you. So that's a whole nother subject. But what you say to an agent is I think it depends on your relationship with the person. I try not to attack it right away unless it's a cold call, and I keep saying that because South Africa was a cold call, and I will. It's on YouTube, but I will tell you a little bit about that. But I try to sort of chat to them. How's your sales? What's going on? And which company you're with? And exactly what I said to Linda Bartlett. You know, in the master bathroom, we were at an agent open house. Who are you with? Oh, she was with Coldwell Banker, I think, Coldwell Banker. But she said, I'm moving to Remax next week. And I said to her, and that's, you take it from where they push it to you. So I said, why Remax? And she said, well, it's 100% commission and you pay your expenses. Then I just said to her, have you ever talked to anybody about Keller Williams? Because we have a profit sharing program, and I don't think we had a cap in those days. That came later. We had to make the cap because otherwise we couldn't compete with Remax, because they have to pay. And the way we took that is that we looked at the rent that they paid every month, which is $2,000 to $3,000 depending on with expenses, and we made our cap equal so that they could be at Remax, but if they were at Remax, they'd have to pay every single month. If they're with us, they only pay when we close something. So the risk has gone away to a huge extent, actually. So why would you join Remax when you can join us? And if commissions is your only consideration. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I try to get people to look at it like a business. And I said to Linda, she said, well, I think I'm going to Remax next week. And I said to her, what have you? You twist the conversation to wherever the person that you're talking to takes you. If they talk about training, you talk about something else. If you talk about, and then one of the other things is it goes to your children. It's a legacy. There's no other company that does that. So my husband's died, and I get his profit sharing, which is almost doubled now because it's all mine. And it's a legacy because when I die, my children will probably share close to $1 million a year, every single year, as long as I always joke and say, I try to recruit very young people. So that they keep it going, you know? But there are, I think I've got about 6,500 people under me now that actually pay me. There's more than that in my downline, but it goes. And then the levels we change too, because it used to be 2 levels. And it used to be, you have to have 2 people, like, is it Amway that has to have 2 people before you get any profit sharing or something? And then we made it straight line, and we made it 2 levels, and then we made it 5 as it got bigger, and then we made it 7, and it was always voted through the Agent Leadership Council. And at the beginning, it wasn't the Agent Leadership Council; it was just the 5 or 6 of us getting together. And then we sort of thought, I think it was Gary who said, we need to give this a name because we need to call it agent. And then they put into all the red tape, whatever you call it, that the rules and regulations that you could, it's agent and owner, and you can't change anything in the basics without the agreement of the agents as well as the broker. Now that does not mean that you can go in and demand a big expense from the broker. That's their choice. And I've got a lovely story about that with Mo.
Oh, yeah?
Should I go into it or not?
Why not?
I was starting, well, I bought the North Texas region, and I had to open offices in North Texas. Gary and I traveled together for about 4 years to the cities, to Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. And he would go and open his offices. I went to him and I said, look, I want more. This is working. What can I do? And he said, well, you can do whatever you like, but you can drive with me to Houston and Dallas and take. Once a week I went. 4 hours. Can you imagine 4 hours in the car with Gary Keller for 4 years? That was pretty good. That's why he calls me his second mother now. And we solved all our problems, his, mine, and everybody else's. And all the kids. Yeah. And where was I? Now you have to remind me.
North Texas region.
Oh yes, and I had to recruit. So I went up there and I said to my manager, I only want to recruit 6 million plus agents, because I knew I had to have a name in Dallas. We were a new agent, beginning agent, growing into good agents, but we didn't have any real superstars from other companies in Keller Williams in Austin until quite a lot later. till after I'd done it in Dallas, actually. I always went to Gary. And so I said, I only want to talk to $6 million plus producers. So my regional director up there, I went up every Tuesday and Wednesday, and I said, I have to stay with you, I've got no money. So I left the house at 5, I got there about 9, and then he had appointments for me all day Tuesday and all day Wednesday, and he made the appointments. And one day, in walk, he says to me, at 2 o'clock, we've got an appointment with Mike Brody. Now, that changed Keller Williams. Mike Brody came to a coffee house, and South Africa was a coffee house too.
Not everyone may know who Mike Brody is. Who's Mike Brody?
Mike Brody was CRS president. He was top Remax. He wasn't a superstar, but he closed about 10 million a year. He had a team, but he was also on George Bush's thing. He was just known throughout the nation as one of the top Remax people. Does anybody know Mike?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, and Tony is his son.
Yes, Tony.
He was a team leader here and is now in charge of the North California region.
Right. And so he was, I mean, when my guy said to me, I've got an appointment with Mike Brody, I said, do you know who Mike Brody is? And he said, well, I think you see, the advantage was that my person up there was an agent who worked with a bank who'd been giving me listings. And I needed a manager for the Texas region. I couldn't do it because I was selling here to pay for what I was doing up there. And so I thought about him very quickly after I bought the region. And I called him up and I said, what do you make? And he said, $32,000 a year. I said, okay, I'll pay you that. That's $1 million listing, by the way. So, at 100%. And I said, I'll pay you that per year if you kind of help me build a region of Keller Williams, and you have the opportunity to profit share. So he did, but he didn't know people. He didn't know names, or he didn't know real estate really. He just was in a bank and had his license, but he never sold houses. And so he was really more like a telemarketer, and every week he would have people for me to speak to. And Mike Brody, I said, you know who Mike Brody is? He said, no, I think he's quite big in real estate. I rolled my eyes and I felt about this big, and Mike is big and tall.
He's a big
guy. He's a very big guy.
Yes, he is.
And he walks into the coffee shop and sits down and he shakes my hand and we sit down and he said, well, I have about 20 minutes. And I said, well, it's not easy to tell you about this in 20 minutes, but I'd like to give you a feeling so that if you want to know more, you can connect with me. And I told him the basic principles of profit share. 2 hours later, I said, look, I'm afraid I've got to go because I've got another appointment. And he came down to see Gary next week, and then he said he'd join. But he wouldn't join. This was in September, October. He wouldn't join until April because he wanted to go to the Remax convention and renew all his relationships, which worked, by the way. And so I couldn't tell anybody that he was going to join. Can you imagine that? For 4 whole months. All I could say was, I have some very strong agents that will be joining. You will be extremely surprised, and I want to tell you about it too. So, and it all worked. We grew very quickly. Now it's the second month. It's second to the, I don't think you've beaten me yet. You better get with it. The office on Preston Road.
Oh,
is
the
number 2.
Preston Road is
Preston
yes,
Road.
indeed.
It's number 2 in the whole unit. So I was I'm very pushed. I always am doing exactly what I'm supposed to do and have to do to build something. And then my son took over 2 years later. But that quick story about Mike joining is that Darren Gribble called Mike. Mike had an appointment with me. And I like to explain this because I like to give you an idea of sponsorship. There's 2 stories I want to tell you quickly. One is that Mike said he'd join. And then when he was asked who his sponsor was, actually I heard by the grapevine, because people always call me, I'm not the staff or anything, so if they think something's going wrong with the international, they call me. Althea, why is this happening? And I said, okay, I'll find out. Anyway, I had got this call to say that Mike Brody was probably not going to pick Darren, who'd made the call, as his sponsor. And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, I wonder if he's going to pick. Well, he knew several people that hadn't called him in the company. And so I had two options, I felt. Go to Gary and give him hell, which I do quite often, or go to Mike and explain, and I decided to do the latter. And I went to Mike and sat him down and I said, you know, Mike, I've got to talk to you about the downline. This is how it works. You have to look at yourself in the mirror for the next 10 years, or however long you're with Keller Williams, and know that you're there because of who? And he's looked at me and he said, because of you. And I said, no. You're there because of Darren, who made that call. I would never have dared call you. I wouldn't have. I promise you, at that point in my life, I would not have dared call Mike Brody. He looked at me and nodded his head and said, you're right. And he picked Darren. That is how it should work. That's when you can look yourself in the mirror and you know you've done the right thing. And if somebody says they should join you because they have a relationship with you, but you didn't get them that way, that to me is, you know, I've done that several times because I think it's just how life is. The other story I tell is that I have, by this time, this is 10 years later, I have a relationship with Gary that's like mother-son. And if I had gone to something and been recruited and decided it was a good idea, I'd have come back to Gary and said, Gary, we need to consider this and go there. And Gary would say, forget it, I'm not going there. I wouldn't have gone. But if 2 years later, or 1 year later, or 6 months later, he had decided it was a good thing, I would be going because of him, not because of the guy that got me in the first place. So it's always a little bit edgy, isn't it? I mean, it's like listings. I always say getting a downline is like a listing. You got to get the listing the right way, not the wrong way.
The right way.
Right.
With
The
integrity.
true way, with integrity.
All right.
Two most important things in life: integrity and relationships. Period. Nothing else can you take with you, but those two things you can, you hope.
Absolutely.
Right.
Who else has a question? I've got more questions. Who else among you has a question for Althea? Shall we go to South Africa? Yes. Tell us how your trip to South Africa and how Growth Share came to be.
Well, I always think that Gary Keller was a Godwink. And if ever you find the book Godwinks, I love Godwinks. Maureen actually gave me that years ago and said I was her Godwink. And it's a little book about stories. There's another one that Gary gave me called Miracles, something of miracles. And he said I was a miracle in his life. And Gary was a Godwink in my life. It was something that was put in front of me, and I believe that God does that myself, and you make choices, and your choices, and well, I think South Africa was a Godwink too. My husband died 7 years ago, and the next year I went to South Africa to visit very, very close friends, and I spent a month there. And while I was there, I saw Remax and not Keller Williams, Remax, now you see Keller Williams, Remax and Century 21, and I thought, gosh, if they're here, we can be here. So I asked my host and hostess if they knew any agents. It's always sort of connections that work in a way. They introduced me to I would say to a lovely old lady like me. I think she's actually 84 and I'm 81, so she's 3 years older than me. And we had lunch and we talked about real estate, and she had been with Remax. And I said to her, you know, this is what we have. And I said, we're going global. So it was a connection through somebody, but the call to Johan was actually a cold call. And she gave me one name. Now, I saw her last year. We're beginning to grow over there. I think we've got 700 agents and 15 offices now or something. I know, it's going very well. And so I said to Marianne, this is what's happening. Do you know anybody who might start a company in a country? I said, you've got to have money and you've got to have credibility and name. You can't just start from a person like me. I couldn't do it. I knew that Marianne couldn't do it. Then she gave me this one name. Now, Johan told me later she could have given me 5 or 6 names. Maybe she didn't want to make me working all the time, you know? I made a cold call from my house to Johan, and I told him you know, who I was. I said, I'm Althea Osborn, I'm visiting this country. I met Marianne, and she told me that you might be interested in hearing about a new opportunity that's coming worldwide. And I got him on tape because he came, I was doing one of these classes about 4 years ago, and he was training. And he came in, I said, would you come in at 12:15 and just tell the class how it happened? And he did, and I put it on, I think it's on YouTube somewhere. But anyway, he said to me, on the phone, this is 100 miles away, he said, you know, you don't know how sophisticated we are in South Africa. We don't need the American systems. I felt like saying, well, you're with Remax, which is American, so what? I mean, but I didn't say that. And I said, well, I can understand that, I said. But I said, you really don't know what you're saying no to. That's a really good line, by the way, because they don't know what they're saying no to. Half the agents that say no say it because they're recruited a lot, and they don't want to be recruited. And so I said, I'd love to talk to you further about it, but he wasn't interested. He was going to hang up, I knew that. So I said, just before you hang up, let me ask you one thing. Would you do me a favor? Go onto the internet and put kw.com or KW Worldwide it is now, if you're doing it worldwide, and look specifically at the culture and the profit-sharing paper by Stanford University, which is all on public stuff. And I hung up, and you know, I wasn't that into recruiting over there. I was visiting friends, my husband had died, you know, I wasn't into business. But I hung up, and I turned around and started having fun. And 2 days later, he called me back, and he said, I think I'd like to meet with you, if that's all right with you. And they took it off from there. I met him at a gas station again. I would say Mike Brody, gas coffee, you know, one of those gas stations that has a coffee shop on the side. And we met at high tables. It's on YouTube, my little thing, talking about it. But to me, it's all about believing that it's good for the person you're talking to, number one, and I'm totally sure that that's true. And two, and it doesn't always work for people if they don't connect and they don't recruit and they don't, but if you immerse yourself into it and get into recruiting and learning how to sell, it's the most incredible life. My life would not be, I've been doing it now 33 years, is it? 36. And I was brand new, I was 48 years old, and it's changed my life really, because we were hard up. We had a military retirement pay. I had 3 children that were all at boarding school, and because that's what we do in Great Britain, we get rid of our kids. So that's how South Africa happened, and then he came over for training, and it's up to them at that time. You can't do it for them, because unless you've got the money, which maybe you can do it for them, but you can't really do it for them. They've got to be a person in their own country, and they've got to have the wherewithal and the connections to start a company like that. And Marianne gave me the right person, and it was a God wink, I'm sure. It was just something that was meant to happen for him and for me, because they are loving it now. It's on Facebook, my Facebook is covered with, they're having a red day next month, and they're all doing that, and they love the culture. Johan is quite religious, quite into the culture of the thing, and I asked him once, why did you call me back? And he said, it was basically the fact that there's no other company that has that profit share opportunity and a culture like God Family Business and all of that. And I think that appeals to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, yes, Nikki.
Where are you, aside from the cold calling and I guess agents on the other side of the contract, where are you meeting all those agents that you...
Where am I meeting them?
Yeah, you like go to...
Well, you meet them at agent open houses.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, no worries.
Relationships at the closing table.
Okay.
I did once a very naughty thing. I passed my check across and it was full. You know, that was not very nice, really. This lady had been rather against all the time, and she was with Remax, and she was paying so much a month, and I just put my check across and said, I just want you to know I get 100% too. And actually, I didn't have any fees out of it, so my check was bigger than hers. But I just interesting. You do it with relationships. I like it with relationships, and you get a lot of people, a lot of new. Now, I do think it's a hard profession. I think if you, I don't know what the numbers are, but if you get 10 new agents joining in a month, in a year's time, how many make it?
Well, 2 or 3
Two. I'd
out
say
of 10.
2 to 3 out of 10. Because you've got to love it, and you've got to focus on it. You can't just hope it comes to you. For instance, my 20 hours of open house a week, I didn't sit in the office. I hardly ever came to the office. You don't make relationships, you don't make contacts in the office. You're sitting in the office waiting, unless you're on phone opportunity. That's another thing I did do, but that was again phone, and it didn't really work. But you got to be where people can find you. And my lovely relocation started. I was sitting in an open house, and as I say, I never attack them when they walk in. And I was in a half-built house, and I came back to. It was in Long Canyon, and I came back to my table. I could open it in the morning, leave it all day, was my listing, and then come back and shut it up in the evening. And when I came back to shut it up, there were about 4 other couples in the house looking at it, and I thought, oh, maybe I better stay for a bit. I'd been showing somebody that I'd met at open house, and so I sat down at my little chair and at my big fat book. Didn't have a computer, but now you can bury yourself in a computer and pretend like you're very deep in your stuff until they get in the master bathroom, right? But I didn't have to wait for this guy to get in the master bathroom because he wasn't interested in the house. Jim Cardy is now one of my closest friends. I sold him in 1983, and he's still in the same damn house. I told him the other day he didn't make me any money. He said, yes, I did, Althea. I gave you all those buyers. But he came over to me and started talking to me. Now, I'd only been in the business 4 months. And so I didn't know what I was talking about, but what I've learned very, very much is that you never tell anybody you don't know what you're talking about, and you never tell anybody necessarily when you're newer how many years or months you've been in the business.
Absolutely.
If they say, how long have you been in the business? Oh, God, I've been selling houses for years. Well, that was true for me, because I've been wife and mother, and we bought 2 houses. Well, as a wife and mother, it's technically true. I bought a house or 2, you know. And so I say, it changes all the time, and so they want to know why they should work with you. And I've got a few little phrases, but it goes more into sales than that. Like, I'm going to tell you 3 times not to buy a house, then I'm going to take my commission. Is that okay with you? And when you've got relocating people in the car, you've got them for 3 hours, and they're stuck for 3 hours. So they can't turn around and walk away like they can in an open house. You've got to be careful in an open house, I'm a bit aggressive sometimes, I think I got more aggressive as I got more confident. But the other thing I always say, tell you 3, I'm working for you, you've got to live in it, but I've got to sell it again. And I'm going to tell you all the negatives. Because I believe in that. I believe that when you look at a house that they like there's a house that somebody wanted, I don't do it much anymore, but they wanted to look at it last week, and I said, I don't want to show you that house. It's on a double yellow line, it's got power lines behind it, and it's a very steep driveway. And if you look at it, you might like it, and I don't want you to buy it. Is that okay with you? That's pretty aggressive, but if you do it,
right?
if you do it gently with the right person, I always try to find what kind of person I'm working with, because I have to become the person that they want to deal with. So one of my test questions when I'm driving them around is, they get nervous if we're in the car a little bit, you can see a little bit, and I say, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you before you buy a house. Now, if they laugh like that, but if they look serious, like that guy there, I'll never joke again. And I've got them for 2 more hours, so I can become like this. Who do you think? So they kind of agree. You become the person they want, they're comfortable being with, because they've got to A, trust you, B, and real estate today is so easy for them to go onto all these internet things and find something, but they'll never get the advice that you can give them. And I tell them that. I say, you'll never get somebody who can tell you the negatives. You can see the positives, and everybody's going to show you the positives. Who's going to tell you the negatives? And they like that after they got used to you a bit. And it's relationship building.
Absolutely.
All right, who has another question? We've got time for 1 or 2 more. Are we going to let this awesome woman leave without more questions? Simone?
How did you continue keeping your passion? Because it sounds like you connect with your clients, but continue that passion on when you've hit a rough spot.
I don't know, because you do hit rough spots. And I think my roughest spot was when I was trying to grow Dallas at the same time as keep my sales up here. But of course I was exhausted. I don't know how you do it. I think I'm totally passionate. I still am passionate. I am doing it. I really am recruiting now more than selling. And it's just, I have a passion for it. And I know that it's good for people. I know it's the right thing for 80% of the agents on this earth. And I don't know why they're not all with us. And I often say that to them. Yeah, I don't know why everybody isn't with Keller Williams. But there are varying reasons not to be. And I can't see them. That nobody else has the legacy for your children or your family when you're gone. Nobody else has the business relationship building that you've got, the training that's done by, like me here today. I mean, would I do that at Remax? No way. I'd be too busy out selling than sharing stuff with you that might help you to do stuff. You know what I mean? That's, to me, what it's all about.
Okay. Yes, Jenna. And then Jean.
What do you think is a good icebreaker for like a cold call for a successful agent that's with another company that you would like to at least get to a training event or out to coffee? If you maybe don't already have a relationship with them, how could you at least get that conversation going?
Well, I can't say that I've ever done much on the telephone, as I told you, I didn't like it. So you do meet enough agents all around the place. I mean, I meet them. You meet them extraordinarily in extraordinary places, just like somebody, the taxi driver. You know, why aren't you selling anything? You know, so I just on the ones that have a business already that are successful, I try to be one person. But I had to make a cold call to Johan, and so what I try to do is look at what that person is and does, and something you might say is, look, I'm excited, we've got a project coming in on our training next month that's this, or like for maps, you can bring them into maps, or you could, especially locally, when the maps is here, would you like to come for an afternoon and see what it's like? And then you talk to the staff, and they usually let you bring somebody in to free if you're paying to do it. So I'm really excited. I'm fairly new with Keller Williams, and I'm really excited about this program. Could you come and give me your opinion? And with Roya, she'd say, well, I'd like to talk to you about my company. I said, you talk to me all day. I'd love to hear about your company. We can compare notes. That's
Absolutely.
Great. I'm never negative about what they want to sell me, because I'm always open-minded about that. I can't believe that there's anything better. And so they'll explain it to me and talk to me about it. And I'll say, you know, I just can't see that replacing what I've got. Can you tell me how it does? And then I say, blah, blah, and this coming in like 90,000 last month. I mean, she doesn't even have
That was a lean month.
Yes, that was summer. I think it was my best month, 92. But that was my husband and me, so it was two. Divided by two, mine was about 50,000.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, and also I say to her, I have no risk, no liability, no overhead, and I've got profit. If there's a negative, like if you have your office with 30 agents and there's a negative, you're going to have to pay it. I don't have to pay a negative, I just get the profit. And I've got all these agents that I can bring into this company all over the nation. And I went to Hawaii recently, and I went into a little mom and pop shop. Said, have you ever heard about Keller Williams? I don't know whether anything will come with it, but I plant a seed. And they may join under somebody else, but they may call me back. Some call me back. But it's in my front of my brain all the time, not the back of my brain. And I still am doing it. I shall continue to do it for the rest of my life when I'm 100.
Absolutely. Or 105. The way we're going, right?
Well, we got a guy in our church who's 102, and he walks up to the thing every day. And he went voting the other day, and I thought, God, I hope I don't do that.
Jean Schubeck, you had your hand up, and then Nikki will come back to you.
Okay, what do you do to get people, banks, to continuously feed you leads?
Okay, what do you do?
Banks.
Banks,
Banks are
institutions.
clients.
Okay, I didn't do institutions much, I did individuals, and I did it by relationship. You know, with this Clardy guy, he was very, very engineering. I never dared joke. I still don't joke with him, and I've known him 30-something years. I've been to see his ranch, and we have a great relationship. Now he has a jokey wife, so I can joke with the wife. You know, it's funny, engineers marry that. But I never worked with rehabs or any of that. It was always individual. It was mostly companies, because Jim started me on that. And then he was growing, it was Crystal Semiconductor, and it became Cirrus. So I think I sold about 1,000 homes over the 30 years. And until they started using a relocation company, and that's how it evolves. But you can get a connection with the relocation company too. So that's what I did. I've never had banks give me listings, except the guy that I hired in Dallas, who found my name and gave me listings from Dallas of foreclosures in Austin. That's how I knew him. But that was because of my reputation here at that time, and I was number 4 in Austin in the 80s, 90s. Number 4 in production for Austin, Texas. So thanks to Jim Clardy, really, another god wink. But he gave me everybody that was coming, and then he got to the point. I love relocation, you see. And Gary used to come to me and say, list to last. And I'd say, oh, Gary, you've got all these listings, but you don't have any buyers. What happens? I've got all the buyers. So we had a little, but I do agree, list to last. But the thing is, at the beginning, I had only buyers, and I got them through open house. And then they became my sellers because of my relationship with them. And that's what's become
So you
exciting.
kept a relationship going.
Oh,
after the
relationships.
closing.
Yes. I used to have, I don't believe in gifts. I think gifts cheapen me, because I'm a professional. Your dentist doesn't give you a gift, and your doctor doesn't usually give you a gift that I know of, right?
That's a good point.
So, and lawyers, they don't. You give them gifts. So I never gave gifts. Plus it was expensive, and I didn't want to do that. I'm cheap. My son will tell you I'm very cheap. But I used to have parties, and I used to take my top 5. Gary taught us 5 wealth determinants. My top 5 people that I was dealing with at the time, and they were from different companies. The relocation, Jim Clardy, and somebody from AMP, somebody from IMP, because I got into all these companies through relationship with people coming into town who knew somebody who was coming into town with another company. And I'd have what I call sundowner, and I'd invite these 5 people and make sure they could come all on one night. I'd call them and say, which night can you come? And once I knew those 5 were coming, then I'd invite another 100 people to my Keller Williams house out there in Barton Creek. I'd have the drinks catered, I'd do all the food, and everything. They used to say, people used to call me and say, am I off your party list out
I
here?
want to be on it.
Yeah.
It was a good thing to
It's
do.
relationships.
All right, one more question. Nikki, did your question get answered? I thought I saw your hand up.
I'll just,
Jeff.
does your profit sharing, like once you pass on it past your kids, does it just keep passing until all of those people are gone, or does
Yes.
it eventually?
If somebody goes, then it goes away and it goes up to you. So if somebody under me dies or leaves, then their bit comes to me and goes on up.
Okay.
Jeffrey?
So who was the gentleman that made the call to Mike Brody?
Who's the
Darren Gribble.
Can you tell me a little bit about that conversation? The one between Darren and Mike.
Oh,
Well,
What-
if you want to hear that, you should hear Mike Brody. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. Mike Brody says, he flattered him. He said, I know that you're very, very well known in real estate. I know you're very well known nationally. You don't have any time at all. Could you give me a few minutes to tell you about a new project, a new concept? You can't say new concept now, but you can say concept that we have that I would like to educate you about as you're in the real estate business. Something like that, he said. And Mike Brody it tells how it affected him. He said that he was a superstar, and that he was the superstar of Dallas, and blah, blah, blah. It made him feel like I'm here. And so he said he'd give him 10 minutes or 20 minutes, which turned into 2 hours.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right, let's give this amazing work a huge round of